Let's talk about adding events using JavaScript. So that's our focus, and these are the commands we're going to look at. So we've seen this before, typical use of event handling. There's our web page, our body, and we want it to do something when it has loaded. Okay, so body on load, do this JavaScript function, and then up here we have our JavaScript function, which is just showing a simple window. All right, we've seen that before. Everything works fine, no problem. Sometimes you want to add the event handling by JavaScript. You don't want to do it by typing in the body or whatever. You want to do it yourself. You want to turn it on, you want to turn it off under the control of JavaScript. So this is one way to do it. This is window.onload. So it's not body.onload, it's window.onload. So there's some small changes here, if you like. But once you know how, you can set it up like this. So that says from now onwards, when the web page has loaded, run the function do something. We have set up an event handler function. All right, it works fine. Here's another way to do things. Window.add event listener. And then which event? Of course, there's lots of events, as we know, click, load, that kind of thing. For the load event, this is the function that will handle it. So this is a second piece of JavaScript, which has the same result as the last piece of JavaScript that we just saw. It sets up the handler when the web page has loaded. Okay, now, it is possible to have more than one event handler function for one event. And if that is true, they get stored secretly in the browser in a long list, in an array. So what am I talking about? Well, for example, if you took this line of code and then you copied it and pasted it 2 more times, and you ran this line of code 3 times, it would make sure that when the web page has loaded, it would run that function not once, but 3 times. It would set up 3 event handlers, which may or may not be the same, and that would apply to that particular thing, a window, being loaded. Okay, so the point is that you can actually add multiple event handlers to one item. All right, so let's say the event actually occurs, like a load, then all of those handlers that you set up, could be 3 or 4, they are executed one by one, okay? All right, now what about if you want to remove an event handler? You've added too many, you've make a mistake, something like that. Okay, I want to remove an event handler. So you find the item in memory using getElementById, which we've seen before. Find the item, and then tell the browser, remove the event listener. Which event, you have to say it, and whatever the code was that was executed, and that makes sure that that particular item is not executed anymore. So you can add event listeners whenever you want, any event, and you can remove event listeners when you want, any event. So here's a little example. So let's run this example. So let's do click me, and up comes a message. Hello, all right, and a second message, clicked. All right, so I did one event, but it triggered 2 things happening. All right, let's just show it again. Click, okay, one piece of JavaScript, and then another piece of JavaScript. Okay, now let me remove the event listener, and that's what I've done. And then I run my code again. One event listener comes up, but the second one does not come up. Okay, back to our presentation to look at the code. Okay, here's our code. So we can see there's our first button. When we click on it, then up comes the message. We saw that. But actually, when we clicked on it, we saw there was a second message as well. And that is because we had added an event listener. Okay, so we found our button 0. There's our button 0, the top button. And then we said, add an event listener. When someone clicks on it, run the code, do something, and that will show a different message. Now, when we ran this example, we clicked on the first button, we saw this event being triggered first, and then we saw this event being triggered second. Okay? Then what did we do? We ran our second button, and our second button triggered some code down here. So we said, okay, when you click on the second button, let's run this function here. And our function said, okay, go and find the first button and remove event listener. What event listener? The click event listener. Okay? So when I click on the second button, it removed the click event listener. However, remember when we ran that example, we clicked on the second button, it ran this code, it removed the click event listener, but we went back to the first button and tried it again, and it did show that first message. It didn't show the second message, but it did show the first message. So you can remove an event listener, but you can only remove an event listener that has been created using JavaScript. If you're using JavaScript to do a removal, you can only remove an event which is created using JavaScript. Okay? The one which is created like this, right here, sort of by typing without JavaScript, it cannot be removed by JavaScript. Okay, that's the end of our quick discussion of using JavaScript to add event listeners.